Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dudayambi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dudayambi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dudayambi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tadayambi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tadayambi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tadayambi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from the happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, about to save them all. However inexhaustible my illusions are, about to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, about to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, about to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata gati gati parasangati bodhisoha. Tayata gati parasangati bodhisoha. Tayata gati parasangati bodhisoha. So 15th of March right now, and it's autumn time in Australia, supposedly, but I think in Melbourne today maybe mid-30s, very humid, very cloudy. Down to Phillip Island, maybe 27, 28 degrees or something, but yeah, quite warm. But anyway, that's my weather report for the day. The reason I mention it now, though, is that I checked out when the daylight savings is finishing. So for us here, it's the 6th of April. I gather that's Sunday. So that's when we go back to the standard time. Okay, so just make a note, those of you overseas that partake live, sometimes or always. And obviously you'll have to look for if you have daylight savings for when it comes into play in your country as well. Obviously, if it does come into play, as I know it does in Britain, then it'll be 2 hours difference. So right now, in Britain, for instance, you have to get up for 6 o'clock in the morning class, and it will be 8 once yours has changed as well. I think yours probably changes a little bit later. I'm not sure. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that in case I forget in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so nothing really changes for us, for the people in Australia. Okay. Oh, actually, it does. And if you live in Brisbane or I think some other states, South Australia, whatever, I think some other states don't have the daylight savings too. I'm not too sure. All right. So we can do some meditation now, initially to release the tension in the body. So just relax, get yourself in a nice position and bring your mind inside your body and release the tension from different parts of the body where you have tension. Bring your mind inside the body, of course, gently closing your eyes, unless it's your habit to have them slightly open. Releasing the tension from the tips of the toes all the way up your legs, up the upper torso to the shoulders, down to the tips of your fingers, and to the top of your head. So releasing from all around your feet, and your lower legs, upper legs, midsection. Slowly work your way up the upper torso, front, sides, and back. To your shoulders, and then down to the tips of your fingers. Up to your neck. All around your head, your face, and finally the crown of your head. So now briefly scan your body from the bottom to the top again, just to see if there's any leftover tension that you can release. And now bring your focus initially to the tip of your nose. Follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe all the way into your lungs and back out your nose again. Focusing on the feeling of the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. You can also add the extra technique of counting the breaths from 1 to 10. Don't go past 10 because we don't want the counting to become the focus. It's there to help you to keep the focus on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and out. So if any thoughts arise or any sort of mental sensations arise, don't cling to them or grasp at them or try to force them away or deny them even. But simply let them go and replace your mind back onto your breath. And if your mind becomes dull or sleepy, then wake it up a little bit by refocusing on your breath more brightly. So now focusing on your breath, breathing in, breathing out. I'll just do some chanting of long dharani or long mantra or mantras. And then we continue onwards with the breath meditation in silence after that. Namo Ratnatraya, Namo Hariya, Volagedishvaraya, Bodhisattvaya, Mahasavaya, Mahakarunikaya. Savalavati Sudanatasiya Namaskiva Namanariya Volagidishvara Lantaba Namo Nikanta Shimaha Bhajachame Zavavadi Shubhamashiyum Zavazava Namo Bazava Namo Bhagama Baditutayato Avolakalo Katikalati Sira Mahabodhisattva Sabo Sabo Mara Mara Mashi Mashira Dayu Guru Guru Gamayan Duru Duru Bashiyati Mahabashiyati Dara Dara Derenesvareya Jala Jala Mahabamara Mudaleya Hiya He Shina Shina Hala Shimbara Shale Baze Bazimbara Shaya Hulu Hulu Bera Hulu Hulu Shiri Zara Zara Zere Zere Suru Suru Budaya 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 Matraya Nilakans Tisarana Bayamana Soha Sataya Soha Mahasataya Soha Siddhya Ishvaraya Soha Nilakanda Soha Pranila Soha Shisima Mukaya Soha Sarva Mahasastaya Soha Chakrastaya Soha Pabangasaya Soha Danilakanda Pandilaya Soha Mopala Shankaraya Soha Namo Ratnatraya Namo Arya Avalokiteshvaraya Soha Siddhyantu Mantrapateya Soha Namo Ratnatraya Namo Arya Shyana Sagara Virushana Bhuharataya Tadagataya Arati Samya Sambuddhaya Namo Sarvatatagatabi Aratabi Samya Sambuddhabi Namo Arya Volagitishvaraya Bodhisattvaya Mahasavaya Mahakarunakaya Tayato Dara Dara Dere Dere Duru Duru Devote Jala Jala Bajale Bajale Guzume Guzume Vari Elimele Siddhizola Apanyaya Soha Om Ram Om Shiram Mane Padme Hum Om Zale Zule Zende Swaha Brum Om Ram Om Shiram Mane Padme Hum Om Zale Zule Zende Swaha Brum Om Ram Om Shiram Mane Padme Hum Om Zale Zule Zende Swaha Brum Bara bara sambara sambara indira wisdami ha ha lulu jere jojo jere soha. Bara bara sambara indira wisdami ha ha lulu jere jojo jere soha. Bara bara sambara indira wisdami ha ha lulu jere jojo jere soha. Bara sambara indira wisdami ha ha lulu jere jojo jere soha. Bara sambara indira wisdami ha ha lulu jere jojo jere so. So now you can just continue to practice in silence for a little bit. So now you can feel really pleased with yourself and fill yourself with universal loving kindness, utilizing the visualization technique of filling your whole being with the white light. And of course, of utmost importance is the feeling of loving kindness. And it's okay if you have to force it a little bit on occasions, or if you're just beginning with this type of meditation. We have to make that little bit extra effort sometimes. As we practice consistently, then it becomes more natural for us to do it without even thinking about it. And let go then of the effort, isn't it? It just becomes natural. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards, initially to your loved ones, family, and friends, and fills them with the universal loving kindness too. So the white light radiates outwards from your heart center, enters into their heart centers, and fills their whole being with the white light. Really perceive that they are happy, free from suffering, and are peaceful. Now also include some strangers, those people that you're indifferent towards. Could be the person you see walking their dog outside or down the shop, petrol station. You don't really know these people, so you don't have any feelings of attachment for them or aversion for them. And now also include those you may regard as enemies, filling all of these people with the white light. May all of these three types of people, from your own perspective, be happy, free from suffering, and be peaceful. And now we radiate to all sentient beings, not just the people now, ones you know about, and even ones you don't know about. Just like with the people, ones you have an affinity towards, those you're indifferent towards, which I imagine is most of them. And then some of the other ones, maybe you fear them or are repulsed by them. But now you extend your loving kindness evenly to all of them, whether they live in the waters or on the land, fly through the air, whether they were born from wombs, eggs, moisture, or through transformation, or maybe they're still to be born. Around your immediate area initially, and now further and further distance-wise throughout your whole state or county. And other states and counties throughout your whole country. And all of the countries throughout the world, as well as throughout all of the waterways, the oceans, etc., down to the core of the earth and to the outermost atmosphere. And beyond this planet, throughout the whole solar system, the whole galaxy and universe and beyond. Have this immeasurable loving kindness pervade throughout infinite space, unlimited. And also be present here and now and recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And so we're working off my article, The Growth of Buddhism in Australia. But really, we're talking about maybe all of the Western countries, really, and actually everywhere. And it's initially, like I said, initially wrote in 2017 for a Buddhist conference in Malaysia. And I've rewritten it and added a bit, taken out a bit, for the Buddhist conference in April in Japan. For the, excuse me, World Buddhist Mission, the Award of Pillars of Buddhism 2025, Hiroshima and Okayama in Japan. I presented a video for them as well as this paper. And like I said, I've humbly accepted their offer to receive one of these awards as well. It's on Buddhism in India, America, Japan, and Australia. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll just read the article to you, as I did last week, and this will be the last time I read it to you. Okay, then we'll just dissect it, and go through different parts each week for the next week or 2 or 3, whatever amount of time it takes. Okay, so excuse me for a second. I think it's just started raining outside. So the growth of Buddhism in Australia. Buddhism has taken firm roots in Australia during the last few decades, due in part to people migrating to Australia from various Buddhist cultures and their second generation who either moved to Australia as children or were born there. It is also due in part to the genuine interest in these precious teachings and way of life shown by Australians of all backgrounds, some of whom have deep virtuous roots from practicing the Dharma in previous lives, and others who are totally new to the Dharma, having a strong attraction to the peace, harmony, and understanding that results from the Buddhist practices of morality, meditation, and wisdom. Therefore, it is essential that the Dharma be taught in the English language, using terminology and expression that can be clearly understood. Although there may well have been some interaction between Buddhists and Australia's indigenous peoples throughout history, due to Australia's proximity to Asia, the first recorded example of Buddhism there dates back to the 1850s gold rush, when many Chinese people migrated to Australia, many of whom would have been Buddhist. The first known Buddhist temple was established in South Melbourne in 1856. The first instance of a Buddhist monk arriving in Australia was in 1910, when an English-born monk arrived from Myanmar. And although over the years various monks visited Australia, it wasn't until the 1970s that monks began to permanently reside there. People have been migrating to and visiting many countries around the world for a very long time, and even more so these days with easier access to international travel and with globalization. As practicing Buddhists, we must be moral, compassionate, and wise, and of benefit to all sentient beings, and not be the cause of conflict and trouble. Therefore, when we migrate to different regions around the world, including Australia, Buddhism and Buddhists have enriched their adopted culture with peace, harmony, and understanding. In a multicultural society such as Australia, if we are wise, we can learn from each other, widen our view of the world and the ways of the world. As Buddhists, we must be kind and friendly and engage in peaceful and harmonious interaction with others based on understanding. And therefore, we are generally a positive influence on those around us, silently encouraging others of varying persuasions to do likewise. From my observation and experience teaching the Dharma in both Australia and the USA, Buddhists and Buddhist communities have done exactly that, been a positive influence and brought benefit to the region where they live and the people that live there. Buddhists generally abide by the law of the land and assimilate peacefully within their chosen homeland. In Australia, Buddhism is held in high regard as a way of peace, a blameless religion with a history that has caused peace, harmony, and understanding wherever it has traveled, including in Australia, where the number of temples and Dharma centers, as well as the number of practitioners from all backgrounds, is constantly and consistently increasing. Of course, as with everywhere, there are still many difficulties and obstacles with having access to and practicing Dharma in a place like Australia that is not considered a Buddhist country. For example, it is sometimes difficult and a long process obtaining such things as building and operational permits for Buddhist establishments such as temples, meditation centers, and schools, along with various other difficulties. But these difficulties and obstacles can be overcome with consistent practice, pure intentions, good skills, and enthusiastic effort. May I also add that in Australia, we have reasonably easy access to all of the Buddhist traditions and cultures, which I feel is a great opportunity for us all to develop genuine understanding into the meaning and practice of the Buddha Dharma, and to develop and maintain unity and support within the Buddhist community as a whole. Remember, we are one, so let's help and support each other as much as possible, so that we are all able to study, practice, and share the pure Dharma to the best of our ability in our own countries and throughout the whole world. May the immeasurably precious Buddha Dharma flourish throughout the whole world and throughout infinite space. So, I know last week we had a little bit of a look at the middle bit there, so I'll just reiterate it slightly. Although there may well have been some interaction between Buddhists and Australia's indigenous peoples throughout history, due to Australia's proximity to Asia, the first recorded example of Buddhism there dates back to the 1850s gold rush, when many Chinese people migrated to Australia, many of whom would have been Buddhist. The first known Buddhist temple was established in South Melbourne in 1856. We went through this pretty much in detail last week. So if you are interested in more details, then review last week's class, okay? But I'll just add here as well, I think it's for sure, isn't it? You know, the different parts of Southeast Asia, for instance, very close to Northern Australia. So Timor, Indonesia, places like this that had rich Buddhist history at different times, you know, so I'm pretty sure there would have been some interaction. In fact, not pretty sure, for sure. Of course, they didn't have airplanes, so they would have had to have rowed or caught a sailing boat, you know, so it wouldn't have been such easy travel, that's for sure. Okay, so but there would have been interaction. The first instance of a Buddhist monk arriving in Australia was in 1910, when an English-born monk arrived from Myanmar. And although over the years various monks visited Australia, it wasn't until the 1970s that monks began to permanently reside there. Now, once again, I went through that last week, so you can review last week's class for some more details. But I will add this, that it appears to me that it didn't last very long. So I think he was only there maybe a year or two. And maybe they weren't ready in Darwin, the north of Australia, to have a monk in the Theravada tradition begging, you know, begging for food. Not begging as in like, please give me this, but just standing silently there peacefully, giving people the opportunity to be generous, and also humbling them himself so that he would, you know, give up any sort of selfishness, pride, and so on, because he's relying upon other people for his requisites. And so if this practice is done correctly, with humility and so on, it's very good practice for both the giver and the receiver. Remember that always, okay? It's not about getting stuff, and it's not about getting merit if you give stuff. You just give, you know, to use my old teaching, that in this world, many people take, unfortunately. Better than that are those that give and take. Better than those are those that give and receive, not take, you know, just receive. But even better than that is just give and give. Don't worry about getting anything in return, you know, generosity without attachment. And so it's good practice, but I don't think maybe they were ready for it. Maybe it was strange to see somebody, especially maybe a Westerner, dressed like that. with the wraparound robes, I imagine. And so it didn't last very long. I know that. I can't remember the details exactly, but I do remember reading that when I was doing a little bit of research years ago. Okay, so let's have a look at this now. We've got 8.5 minutes to go, so it's not too bad. I think maybe we split this up into today. I'll do the first part, and then next week we can see how far we get into it, and probably the week after as well. Okay, so then we'll start to look at Master Atisha's teachings, the two of them. As I mentioned last week, I found a shorter one as well as the longer one. So Buddhism has taken firm roots in Australia during the last few decades, due in part to people migrating to Australia from various Buddhist cultures and the second generation who either moved to Australia as children or were born there. Of course, I'm using the language there because I spoke this overseas. Okay, so maybe I should change it to here now. Anyway, yeah, I mean, obviously Buddhism is in Australia. We have different cultures that came here or come here, either as refugees or moving here for education or business or whatever, just moving your family around. And and so a lot of these people, obviously Buddhist and wanting to continue to practice, hopefully, and so therefore started to establish, places where they could practice together in a community, such as temples, meditation centers, or Dharma centers, and even some schools have popped up, though there's not many of them, Generally in Buddhism, I think we think that you don't really have to have a Buddhist school as such. Some other religions, they like to have their own schools. Me personally, I wish that everything was state schools. I think there would be more equality, rather than people paying for education. And this is another subject. I digress a little bit. But, going to private schools, pay a lot of money. Some of the teachers, some good teachers get paid more to go there, so maybe they do that. State schools don't have as many teachers as they need. I don't really know. I haven't researched these things. But I think that if everything was equality like this, then it would be better for the society as a whole. Teaching equality right from the beginning of school. So, but I can't change that. People don't want to listen to me. So anyway, whether it's Buddhist school or whether it's state schools or the private schools, the Buddhists tend to look at school education as that you don't need religious education in schools. You can go to the temple for that. But if it's there, that's fine. So anyway, like I said, I digressed. So then, of course, there's the second generation. So people may have moved to Australia or other Western countries, from Buddhist countries, want to establish a place for themselves to practice. And then they're just second generation. I hope they didn't go away from the Dharma. I think it's probably possible that some of them would get affected by Western ways, maybe other religions pushed on them, things like that. Then maybe they feel peer group pressure, stuff like that. So hopefully they can remain in the Dharma. It's really important that we pass the Dharma on to the younger generation, teach them what they are ready to hear, and show them that it is good, good to be moral, good to practice meditation, good to develop wisdom and compassion and so on. All right. So either moved to Australia as children or were born there. It is also due in part to the genuine interest in these precious teachings and way of life shown by Australians of all backgrounds. So which is true. If you think about even our classes, whether they were face-to-face or when they were face-to-face, or the Zoom class, when there's, lots of people attending or looking at the teaching, and at least later on as well, the recorded version, recorded video, then many people from different places. So attracted, to the Dharma. Some of whom have deep roots from practicing the Dharma in previous lives. So we have previous lives, obviously. This life that doesn't come from, nowhere, doesn't just poof. Now I'm born now, or actually born, and I'm conceived right now, 9 months before uh, actually popping out, you could say, popping out of mum's womb. But it comes from before, from, cause and effect. We create our conditions ourselves. So to be born as a human being and born in a place like Australia, for instance, a place where the Dharma is practiced, precious human life in that sense, then this takes a lot of merit, a lot of good karma that we create to experience that, whether it's actually from previous lives, we're just bringing it into this life, continuing our practice, or whether we are for the first time, for maybe a long time or ever, in touch with the Dharma. We've created that. We've created those good conditions. So we can rejoice in that, that's for sure. Everything arises and ceases due to the cause and effect, And there's a teaching I put on Facebook today. Have a look at that. And then yesterday, I actually put this article up there, so you can have a look at that. So yeah, cause and effect, and of course, rebirth, previous life, of course. To me, it's just like, why even argue against that? It's bizarre how some people don't believe that. And they say, oh, you've got to prove it to me. No, you prove it to yourself. Think about it. Use your intellect. Use your ability to investigate and analyze, and so that you can come to some firm understanding of these teachings. Okay, so, and then of course, practice well now, and then you continue to improve, continue to at very least be in touch with the Dharma. Okay. Having a strong attraction to the peace, harmony, and understanding. Of course, the Dharma does cause peace, due in a sense to the morality practice. Don't do anything wrong, be harmless. Meditation practice, getting to know your mind, calming your mind, decreasing your faults, increasing the good qualities, developing this wisdom, this understanding, the knowing, as well as compassion, caring for others, wanting them to be free from suffering, and being kind, wanting them to be happy. Strong attraction to the peace, harmony, and understanding that results from these Buddhist practices of morality, meditation, and wisdom. And therefore, it is essential that the Dharma be taught in the English language, using the terminology and expression that can be clearly understood. Obviously, so we should practice, even if it's religious, even if we practice selfishly sometimes, bring happiness to yourself, calm yourself down. Clear your mind so that you can experience life to the fullest, to use an old saying. And then as you do that, you start to see the benefits. And then, of course, you can get more deeply into the practices, practice more accurately with a good intention. And then improvement comes quickly sometimes. But we have to start somewhere. We have to continue. If we get a little bit disheartened, then we have to get off our butts and make more effort, persevere more. And then enthusiasm will arise again. The four great efforts, so the enthusiastic perseverance. So I rejoice in your goodness as always. I hope you're enjoying these teachings, and looking forward to next week as I am. So study the Dharma,